They say the scariest stories are the ones that could actually happen. The kind that don't involve ghosts or monsters, but people, real people, powerful people. It's about what happens when you get too close to fame and realize what it really costs. I didn't believe in any of this. Not until spring break sophomore year. That week in LA was supposed to be fun. Sun, drinks, selfies, but there's a line you don't realize you're crossing until it's way too late to turn back. What I'm about to tell you, it's not a conspiracy theory. It's not clickbait. This story will stay with you, whether you want it to or not. Some people watch the video and laugh it off. Others message me weeks later and say they haven't slept since. All I ask is that you pay attention. Every word, every name. Because someone did try to warn me that night. And by the time they did, it was already too late. Spring break was supposed to be just that, a break, a week away from the grind. No early practices, no playbook, no coaches breathing down our necks, just palm trees, girls, and whatever kind of trouble we could find without ruining our scholarships. We were 3 athletes out of a D1 school you'd recognize if I said the name. I'm not going to. Same reason I won't tell you our real names. If you know, you know. If not, keep it that way. For the sake of the story, call us Tyrese, Dre, and Cam. Tyrese was the mouthpiece. Always had a fresh cut, fresh fit, and at least 3 lies ready for every party. Dre was our anchor. Quiet, broad-shouldered, the type to sit back and catch everything before anyone noticed he was even in the room. And me? I'm Cam. I was the curious one. Not nosy, but open. I wanted more than what we had, more than just touchdowns and groupies. Something bigger. We got a busted Airbnb just east of Hollywood. No parking, 1 shower, and a weird stain on the ceiling none of us wanted to talk about. But it was ours, and that was enough. Every night, we hit the city hard. Lounges, bars, warehouse parties. We weren't famous, but being college athletes gave us a little shine. Just enough for the velvet ropes to part when we acted like we belonged. And that 3rd night, that's when it started. We were outside this rooftop lounge, feet blistered, buzz fading, about to call it a night. That's when this guy walked up on us. Mid-40s, clean suit, no tie, perfect skin like he slept in a cryo chamber. Everything about him felt too smooth, like he was airbrushed in real life. "You boys ever been to a real party?" he asked, eyes locked on us like he already knew the answer. Tyrese smirked. "We at one right now, ain't we?" The man chuckled like we were cute. "I'm talking Beverly Hills, private, select list, no phones, dress clean, don't ask questions." Dre gave him the kind of look you give someone when you don't know if they're crazy or connected. "Who's throwing it?" The man didn't blink. "You'll see. Think of it like an opportunity." He handed me a card. Matte black. No logo. No contact info. Just an address written in silver ink that shimmered when it caught the streetlight. Cold to the touch. Like metal. We didn't say yes. We didn't say no. We just looked at each other. 3 guys who'd fought through worse things than a party in the hills. And without even speaking, we knew we were in. If we'd said no, maybe none of this would have happened. Maybe we'd still sleep through the night. We pulled up just after midnight. The Uber driver didn't say a word the whole ride up the canyon. Didn't speak when we gave him the address. Didn't flinch when the gate opened by itself. Just kept his eyes forward like he didn't want to be part of whatever was happening. When we got out, he drove off before the doors even shut behind us. The house, if you could even call it that, looked more like a museum. All white stone and sharp lines, perched at the edge of the cliff like it was daring gravity to say something. No music, no lights, no sound except the wind in the trees. It was too perfect. That was the first red flag. We walked up the driveway in silence. Tyrese cracked a joke about us being underdressed, but no one laughed. The front door was already open. Inside, it was colder than it should have been. The air felt filtered, sanitized, like nothing had ever really lived there. The walls were lined with mirrors, but none of them reflected right. You'd glance over and catch your shape moving just a half second behind you, like your reflection had a mind of its own. The party, or what passed for one, was already underway. But there was no music, no dancing, no clinking glasses or laughter, just whispers, soft, continuous whispers, like dozens of people were murmuring at once, but never saying anything loud enough to catch. The guests were still, too still. Everyone looked flawless, like runway models and Instagram elites, but they moved like mannequins, polished, robotic, disconnected, eyes glazed, smiles stuck. We were the only ones reacting. Everyone else looked like they were waiting for something, or someone. A man in all black approached us without speaking. His suit was tight, hands gloved, eyes glassy. He handed each of us a drink in a crystal glass. It smelled sweet, too sweet, like syrup with a chemical edge. Dre sniffed his and passed it off to a nearby table. I did the same. Tyrese downed his in one gulp. "No big deal," he said, already loosening up. But his smile was a little too wide. His eyes didn't quite match. We walked deeper into the mansion, past floating staircases and rooms filled with designer furniture no one was sitting on. Every now and then, someone would glance our way, just briefly, like they were checking inventory. We didn't see any celebrities, at least not right away. But something about the way people carried themselves, the way they stared through you instead of at you, it felt like we were the ones out of place. And then I saw him. A man standing alone by the far window, back turned, staring out into the dark like he was trying to remember something. He didn't move like the others, didn't belong to them. And somehow I knew. He was watching us before we even got there. He stood alone at the far edge of the room, half lit by the glow from the glass wall that looked out over the hills. Everyone else blended into the background, living mannequins with champagne flutes. But him, he was still, focused, real. And I could feel his eyes on me long before I looked his way. He wasn't old, but he looked worn. Black hoodie, loose jeans and slides, like he'd come from a different world entirely. Like he wasn't dressed for the party because he wasn't part of the party. He was just stuck in it. I broke from the group and walked over, acting like I was just curious about the view. As soon as I got close, he spoke. "You shouldn't be here." His voice was low, but not threatening. More like someone who's seen too much and knows it won't matter what they say, because people never listen until it's too late. I glanced back. Tyrese was laughing with a girl who looked like she'd been photoshopped into real life. Dre stood off to the side, alert, watching me, always watching. "You know the guy who invited us?" I asked. The man didn't answer. Instead, he said, "They don't invite you. They choose you." That made something tighten in my chest. He kept his eyes on the canyon outside. "You ever heard of the man card?" I hesitated. "Like being a real man? That kind of thing?" He shook his head slowly. "Not like that. The man card is what you're born with. Integrity, autonomy, soul. And every time you trade a piece of it, for access, for protection, for fame, you're giving it away. Not all at once, just little cuts." He turned then, finally looking me in the eye. His stare was heavy, not scary, but loaded, like he was handing me a truth I wasn't ready for. "They test you," he said. "They don't take it outright. They make you give it." I swallowed hard, suddenly aware of the drink in my hand. Still untouched. He nodded toward it. "That was your first test." Behind me, I felt a shift in the room, like something big had just entered. Everyone subtly realigned, like magnets snapping to face north. Conversations paused, heads turned, not out of fear, out of respect. I turned, and that's when I saw him, smiling, calm, draped in designer everything, moving through the crowd like he'd been gliding since birth. I'm not saying his name. You already know it. He locked eyes with me across the room and smiled wider. "Be careful," the man beside me said quietly. "If he looks at you like that, it means he's already watching." I turned to ask him what that meant, but he was gone. No trace, no goodbye, just gone. and the man everyone else was looking at. The one all the whispers had been waiting for. He was walking toward me now. He walked straight toward me like we'd met before. Smiling, slow, smooth. Everything about him was practiced, like he'd rehearsed this exact moment 1,000 times. He wasn't loud, didn't make a scene. But the entire room tilted when he entered, like he carried gravity in his skin. He reached out, dapped me up like we were teammates. "I've been hearing about you," he said, voice low and syrupy. "Didn't know you'd pull up tonight." I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded, keeping my eyes level with his. Tyrese was too far gone to notice. Dre was still posted, watching from across the room, clocking everything. But no one else seemed to notice how close he was standing to me. That was the first thing I clocked. He didn't want attention, he wanted access. "You got good energy," he said, flashing that signature smile that had sold out arenas and top charts for decades. "Come kick it with me." Little after-hours vibe. Real low-key. Just a few of us. He motioned toward a hallway behind the bar, an arched corridor that didn't look like it belonged in the same house. No one else had gone back there all night. My throat went dry. I forced a casual shrug. "I'm here with my boys." "They good," he said, already turning. "You the one I want to talk to?" I followed him. Stupid, I know. But I did. We moved through the hallway, and the deeper we went, the colder it got. Not physically, just off. Like the air wasn't being shared with the rest of the house. Like it had been sealed off. The lights dimmed behind us. Eventually we reached a door with no handle, just a smooth panel of wood. He pressed his palm against it. The door opened like it had been waiting. Inside was a lounge that looked like a billionaire's panic room. Velvet walls, soft amber light. Everything too expensive to be real. One wall was all mirrors, but the reflection felt delayed, like it was waiting for you to look away so it could move. Two men were already inside, silent, sitting on opposite ends of a curved couch, sipping dark liquor. Their faces were familiar. One an actor, the other a producer. I won't say who. You'd know them. The host poured me a drink from a decanter that looked like it was made of obsidian. Thick, dark liquid. No label, no bottle, just ritual. He handed it to me with both hands. "You don't have to drink it," he said, still smiling. "You just gotta hold it." I stared at the glass. It shimmered slightly, not from the light, from itself. "Everybody starts somewhere," he said. "It's not a contract. It's a gesture." I didn't move. That's when the smile dropped. Just for a split second, like a mask slipping. Then it came back, smooth as ever. Most people don't even hesitate. I set the glass down. The room went still. He stared at me, then nodded slowly, like he'd just confirmed something. "That door don't open twice," he said softly. And just like that, I knew. I just told something I didn't believe in, that I believed in it. I sat in front of me like it was breathing, still full, untouched, but somehow heavier than before. I could feel it pulling at something in me. Not my hand, not my body, but something deeper. Like it wasn't offering a drink. It was offering a question, one I didn't want to answer. The two men on the couch hadn't said a word, but I felt their eyes, judging, waiting. Not for me to drink, but for me to choose. And that's when the door creaked open again. He stepped in like he'd never left. The man with the smile. The man we weren't supposed to say no to. Still calm, still glowing. But something in his walk had changed. Less charm, more control. He looked at the glass, then at me. "Didn't drink it?" I shook my head once, firm. He chuckled, but there was no humor in it. You'd be surprised how few people pause. Most just want to be in the room so bad they'd sip battery acid if it came in a crystal glass. I didn't respond. I didn't trust my voice. He stepped closer, leaned down near my ear like he was letting me in on a joke. That drink wasn't about trust. It was about ownership. He said it quiet, like it wasn't meant for the other two to hear. even though I'm sure they already knew. You thought this was just a party? Nah. This whole thing, it's a machine. You're either part of it or you're fuel. I looked at him. So what happens now? He stood upright, smile returning like it had never left. Now you see the rules. He motioned for me to follow. I hesitated. He raised an eyebrow. Don't worry, ain't nobody gonna hurt you. That's not how this works. The two men on the couch finally moved. One of them smirked. The other whispered something under his breath I couldn't catch. I followed. We moved through another hallway, this one even darker than the last. Velvet turned to stone. The walls were damp, cold, like the house was shedding its skin the deeper we went. You got talent, he said as we walked. Real presence. And that curiosity in your eyes, that's what they like, that hunger. I kept silent. You thought that drink was the offer. He laughed softly. That was the invitation. The real offer's still coming. We stopped at a door made of metal, old, rusted, sealed with bolts that looked ancient. This isn't about music, or money, or even fame, he said, placing a hand on the handle. This is about submission, giving up what makes you you, one piece at a time, so you can wear the mask they give you, and smile when you're told. He turned to me, smile now razor thin. Thing is, they only feed it when it gets too hungry. That's when I bring it a man's card. He opened the door. Darkness waited on the other side, thick, alive. And I knew right then, I wasn't in a mansion anymore. I was in something else. I stood there, the mask staring up at me like it already knew what I'd choose. Everything in the room, the silence, the walls, the low hum under my feet, tightened like a noose around my ribs. I'm not putting that on, I said, barely louder than a breath. Diddy didn't react at first. He just tilted his head slightly, like he was waiting to hear if I'd changed my mind mid-sentence. I didn't. You sure? He asked, that smile twitching at the corner like it wasn't holding much back anymore. This ain't just for tonight, this is your whole life. That mask protects you. I looked at him, really looked. And in that moment, all the shine, all the flash, it cracked. I saw what was underneath. I'm good, I said. For a second, the whole room felt like it exhaled. Then, without warning, Diddy's smile dropped. Completely. No malice, no anger, just cold efficiency. All right, he said, stepping back. He pressed something on the wall. The door behind me slid open again, revealing the hallway. But this time it felt longer, like it had stretched since I'd walked in, and the lights were dimmer now, uninviting. You're done here, he said. Take your friends with you. This door don't open again. I didn't wait for a second invitation. I stepped out, heart pounding like I just walked out of a burning building, but my legs didn't buckle. Not yet. I needed to find Tyrese, and Dre, I wasn't leaving without them. Tyrese, I shouted, jogging through the hall, passing rooms I hadn't noticed on the way in. One of the doors was cracked, light spilling into the hallway. I pushed it open. Tyrese stood inside, alone. His eyes were wide, glassy, sweat on his forehead. He looked frozen mid-thought, staring at something just out of sight, like he'd been waiting on a message from someone who hadn't shown up. Ty, I said, stepping in. We're leaving, now. He blinked like he'd just been snapped out of a trance. Yo, he whispered, voice shaky. You just called my name? Yeah. Let's go. He didn't hesitate, didn't argue, just moved. We ran through the mansion, past guests who didn't seem to notice us anymore. The air felt thinner the closer we got to the front. Then we hit the door and burst into the night like we'd been underwater too long. And there was Dre, standing by the curb, arms crossed, calm, too calm. He looked at us, eyes a little off, smile faint but stuck, like he was posing for a photo no one was taking. You good? I asked. He nodded, already looking down the road. Uber's almost here, he said. His voice was normal. but something behind it wasn't. I glanced at Tyrese. He avoided my eyes. The mansion loomed behind us, silent, like it had already closed the door and erased everything inside. None of us spoke until we were in the car. I didn't sleep that night. Still don't sometimes. We never talked about it. Not really. We got in that Uber, rode back in silence. Tyrese stared out the window like he was trying to forget what he saw. Dre just sat there, still too still, like he was already somewhere else. When we got back to the Airbnb, Tyrese threw up in the bathroom, said it was something he drank. Dre went straight to bed, fully dressed, shoes on, didn't say a word. I didn't sleep. I just sat on the edge of the couch, staring at nothing, thinking about that mask, the silence, the thing behind the glass. By the time we flew home, everything had changed. Tyrese quit the track team 2 weeks later, said his heart wasn't in it anymore, said he wanted to find himself. But we all knew that was code for something broke. He stopped coming around, deleted his socials. Last thing I heard, he'd moved to Atlanta, wasn't running anymore. Dre was different too, quiet, more than usual. He'd always been the one to think 3 steps ahead, but after that night, it was like he'd lost interest in the game. Stopped showing up to workouts, missed classes, stared at walls, then he was just gone. Dropped out, disconnected, like something inside him had closed for good. And me? I stayed. Tried to pretend everything was normal. Pushed it down, focused on the future, graduated, moved on. But I never really did, because that night didn't end. It followed me, in little ways. The whisper in a silent room, the feeling someone's watching when you're alone, the mirror that doesn't quite show what it should. I started having dreams. That room, that mask, that sound on the floor. And sometimes, when I wake up too fast, I swear I still feel it watching, like I left a door open I shouldn't have touched. I haven't seen Tyrese or Dre in almost a decade. We just drifted, like the thread that held us together snapped that night and we all fell into different timelines. But that's not the end, because a few months ago I got a message from Tyrese. It just said, "It's time." No context, no call, just that. 2 days later, Dre reached out too. We didn't plan it, we didn't talk it through, we just knew. After all these years, we're finally getting back together to tell the stories we've been trying to forget. Each of us saw something different. Each of us made a different choice. But now we're ready to talk. And if you've been paying attention, really paying attention, you already know what's coming next. So here's my final question. Do you still have your man card? Because once they see you, you're already inside.